Today, the Liberal government made good on a budget promise for new parents. Starting in December, new parents will be able to take up to 18 months off work while still getting employment insurance benefits. But there's a catch. Those checks will just be spread out over a longer period of time, so you'll still get the same amount of money. To qualify for benefits, new parents must have accumulated at least 600 hours of insured employment in the previous year. The announcement affects nearly 192,000 parents each year in this country. EI benefits for new parents make up the largest share of special payments under EI. A number of companies voluntarily bridge gaps for employees on leaves through EI top-ups. So the onus will fall on them to decide if they'll amend their current policies. According to the most recent data from StatsCan, the average company top-up lasted an average of 19 weeks with average weekly payments of $300. For more on what these changes mean for Canadian parents and parents-to-be across the country, I'm joined by Jennifer Robson. She's an assistant professor at Carleton University. This is certainly a very positive headline. Does it actually address the mat leave needs that we do have in this country?
I think this policy, so the government isn't announcing anything new today. They're rolling out what they announced back in the budget. This policy will have a positive impact for a number of families, many of whom were actually already trying to extend their leave, but were doing so self-funded. But does it fill all of the gaps? No, absolutely not.
So, I mean, what is lacking? You wrote a sort of marquee paper on this last year and sort of laid out a four-step plan that was pretty simple. Even a guy like me could follow it. Where does this plan fall down?
Okay, so what this plan is going to do is reach an awful lot of families, as I said, who were already qualifying for EI benefits, and it's going to give them more flexibility. We know that that's a good thing for maternal employment rates. We know that that's a good thing for work-life balance. We know that's a good thing for kids. What this plan is not going to do yet, though, and so I'm hoping that the government will be continuing to look at these issues, is ensure that more parents who are working actually qualify for benefits. Right now, about 1 in 5 new moms in Canada has worked in the year before she either gave birth or adopted a child, but doesn't qualify for benefits. 33% of all Canadian couples outside of Quebec are not qualifying for EI. So we need to do a better job of making sure that more people are getting into the system. Next, and I know people have already been talking about this plan is letting parents choose between taking the same level of benefits, right, but just spreading it out over a longer period of time. And what that's going to mean is that for some number of new families, they're going to have a harder time making ends meet, right? So it's not really actual choice if you can't afford to avail yourself of the system, right? So maybe there's an opportunity to look at better topping up benefits for very low income families. I know the government likes to talk an awful lot about the middle class, but also let's not forget those who are working hard to join it. There's a role here for employers as well. You know, not enough parents in Canada are qualifying for top-ups through their workplace employment, and we know that that's really critically important in terms of actually having families be able to make ends meet. So I would say that there's still work to be done. You know, this is the government making good on a promise. It's going to be a promise that works for an awful lot of families, but there's still more to do.
You know this file, and you know the players on this file certainly better than I do. So you probably have a better read on nuance. You sounded optimistic at the beginning of that answer, but then there's a long list of things that aren't yet sort of in the plan. Are you optimistic that we're going to get there?
Gosh, optimism. Yes, I think at heart I am fairly optimistic. I was listening in as you were playing that clip of the minister who was talking about the need to change the EI system to actually be more responsive to families, to the diversity of families, to their working conditions, and also to do a better job of actually responding to changing labor force conditions. We already know that there are more people who are in situations where they don't necessarily have a standard Monday to Friday 9-to-5 job. And I think there's a broad recognition, right, that we need to do a better job of taking a look at our income security policies like EI to say, look, this is only going to be, you know, the trend going forward, that there are going to be fewer people who have standard employment, and so what does that mean for our social programs and social policies? EI is an absolute, you know, kind of critical case for that. So yeah, I feel generally optimistic about possibly some future changes coming forward.
And what is the next sort of step for that? Is it, you know, just sort of constant pressure on governments, or is it, you know, waiting for the next in to try to affect these changes? How do we sort of make sure that we are moving down that path?
That's a really big question, Peter. I would say the most critical change that has to happen right now, though, is for provincial legislation to be enacted so that parents who want to make use of this new flexibility and the benefits still have job protection, right? The vast majority of Canadian workers are not covered by the Federal Labour Code, which has already been amended. About 80% of Canadian workers are actually subject to provincial legislation. So provinces definitely have a job to do here in terms of making sure that when parents do make use of the leave, that they've got some job security, that they know that their right to go back to employment is still protected. I gather Ontario has already tabled legislation. Quebec is well ahead of the game. So again, I think that there's reason to be optimistic that the other provinces will be following suit.
All right. Really appreciate your insight. Jennifer, thanks for this. Jennifer Robson, Assistant Professor at Carleton University.